Americans love scenery. We want to see it all, from one coast to the next, Mount Rushmore down to the Everglades. So hop into a Chevy Malibu and take the scenic route. It's the car you knew America could build. There's a place where people count on friendships they can trace back generations, where they can count on the same stool at the coffee shop waiting for them every morning. This place is called Glen Ellen, and you can find it in every bottle of Glen Ellen wine. This is craft brewed Herman Joseph's, the smoothest, easiest drinking specialty beer in the entire solar system. And I believe you'll find drinkable in the dictionary right after don't order a beer you can't drink. Zoingo! Boingo! The freestyle pogo with more boing, more bounce. Bounce further, bounce higher with Zoingo Boingo. To see what makes Arrowhead Mountain Spring water different from those other waters, you have to go back to the source. And with Arrowhead, that means going back a little farther and longer than most. Between security challenged and security strengthened, there's one important word: how. And it is the how that makes all the difference to our nation and our world. Lockheed Martin. We never forget who we're working for. What makes Kraft Singles so good? 2 out of every 3 kids don't get the recommended amount of calcium. But with Kraft Singles, they get a good source of calcium and the taste they love. Kraft Singles. Magic every single time. Throw boring overboard with a new real meal from Long John Silver's. A meal worthy of a plate. Just $4.99. Only at Long John Silver's. We may not all be geniuses, but we can all do something smart. Introducing the Hyundai 199 Sonata Lease. It's a smart deal on a really smart car.
Best diets I was ever on was as a kid. You know, because I grew up in an Irish neighborhood, and my Irish relatives wouldn't have it. He said, I'm going to give you a diet, and it's going to work your whole life. Write this down. Go ahead. Stop your fucking eating. If you see it, and it looks all sweet and tasty, well then put it down.
Good morning. It's Wednesday, Apollo Wednesday, December the 3rd, and this is The True Conservative. Welcome to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there. I'm Ron, your host, and the only true conservative in the United States today. So today, after the Serenity Prayer and the patriotic song of the day, we will have Varney and Company, motivation, meditation, and Apollo. All that and more when I get back. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I should not change, the courage to change the things I should, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. Thank you. Now, Stuart Varney.
Both this morning. Thank you so much.
You got it.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll see you again tomorrow. Varney and Company picks it up now. Stu, take it away.
Good morning, Maria. Good morning, everyone. Call it a win. Republican Matt Van Epps won Tennessee's 7th congressional district election. He beat the far-left Democrat Afton Bain 53-45. Van Epps credits Donald Trump's support for the victory. The Republicans can breathe a little more easily. Early polls had suggested that Ben could actually win. Well, at his cabinet meeting, the president floated the idea of eliminating the income tax. He says it could be replaced by revenue from tariffs. J.D. Vance says 2026 could be the year when the economy really takes off. It'll be a big tax refund season, and that will stimulate the economy and make life more affordable. Word of the day. To the markets, the Bitcoin comeback continues. It's reached $93,000 a coin just days after falling below $85,000. New figures this morning show a decline in private sector jobs, but stocks rallying again. Dow up 60, Nasdaq 37. Little change for Treasury yields. We have the 10-year coming in at 4.07%. The 2-year right now is at 3.49. Gold, well above $4,200 an ounce, back up $50 an ounce, $42.70. Silver, $59.55. It's had a good run. Oil, $59 a barrel. Gas, still there, below $3, the national average, $2.99 still. California, $4.52. On the show today, there's an intense debate over the killing of drug boat survivors. Secretary Hegseth says the admiral in charge of the operation acted entirely within the law. The Democrats are considering impeachment. More repercussions from the giant Somali-led fraud scandal in Minnesota. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem says she's going after all Somali migrants. The president says we don't want them in our country. More on Michael and Susan Dell giving billions to America's youngsters, and Trump accounts giving $1,000 to America's babies. My opinion, it's a big win for kids and capitalism. And they just won't quit, will they? The New York Times says Trump appears to fight sleep during cabinet meetings. We cover it all on this Wednesday, December 3rd, 2025.
And that was Varney and Company, Nonprofit News Now. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Maria Bartiromo.
Welcome back. The chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission, Paul Atkins, joined me yesterday at the New York Stock Exchange after he gave a speech on the burdens of too much disclosure and too much regulation. So I asked him about the disclosures from Chinese companies trading on U.S. exchanges. Watch. Mr. Chairman, are there any other countries that do not follow the same disclosure rules that American companies follow aside from China? Because I know that China and Chinese companies did not follow the same disclosure rules that American companies did. And then there was a rule put in that they have to. I don't know where we are on that. But are there any other countries that have that allowance other than China?
Oh, there are a lot.
And that's her, the beginning of her interview with this individual. Doesn't matter who he is because it's all the same. As far as the interview style, what she's doing is a motivational interview rather than an informational interview. Informational interview is what journalists are supposed to do. They ask who, what, where, when, and why questions in order to inform their audiences. She is asking a leading question. She starts out again. She actually started with a question, which looked like she was going to go in the who, what, where, when, why direction. But before she let him answer, she then puts in her pretext. She gives the pretext for the question so that which is a signal to the person she's interviewing as to how she wants this answered. So again, she's doing motivational instead of informational interviewing. It's inappropriate. Nonprofit news now. Thank you. And now the left understands something that the right, except for me, doesn't understand. And that is that people are policy. And that if you want, the best way to affect policy is to affect the people promoting that particular policy. And this is why they're always on about Trump. This is where Trump derangement syndrome comes from. They're hammering Trump, like Trump, 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 because they know that if they get rid of Trump, they get rid of MAGA. And they don't want to have to go and deal with all of his policies and his sub-policies and sub-policies and try to convince a majority of the Americans that these policies are wrong. Much easier to just simply defame the individual and go from there. So here's an article, and I want to use this article to demonstrate this principle, and I'm going to count up the number of times that Trump's name is brought up in this commentary by a liberal asshole named Heather Digby Parton. Trump's war on drugs. So that's number one. That's the from the headline. In the first paragraph, President Donald Trump posted. Let's see, where else we got in here. Trump told the media. Let's see. Trump advised Maduro. Trump told the media. Trump's war on what he says. Trump administration is ostensibly. Let's see, next paragraph. Let's see. Donald Trump, the crusading. Trump might have made a phone call. Let's see. Contrary to what Trump's respected. Trump to pardon Hernandez. Let's see, where else we got it? Trump's outrageous pardon. Trump has pardoned. Trump told the New York Times. Trump has made a habit. And then the final paragraph, the last two sentences. So it's really not much more complicated than this. It's all about him. It's always all about him. And the asshole that wrote this commentary is so right, but not for the reasons she thinks. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little motivation.
What do you do when your battle chooses you? What do you do when something shows up on your doorstep that you did not directly cause, choose, or definitely anticipate?
There's problems that we go through that cause stress, worry, anxiety, and fear, but you might be in the battle of your life. I want to encourage you. It's not about what's happening around you. It's always about what's happening inside of you.
Life is hard sometimes. Easy, it's not an option. It's hard. keeping your spirits up, getting up every day knowing and feeling that death is watching over you and say, you better sleep with one eye open because I'm waiting on you. It's hard when you're hurting. It's hard. You got bills, you got responsibilities. It's hard. But it's worth fighting. It's worth believing. It's worth giving yourself a chance. It's worth mustering yourself up, standing up inside yourself. It's worth fighting relentlessly, never giving up. You can do it. You can do it.
Just because you feel afraid doesn't mean you have to be afraid. Just because you feel discouraged doesn't mean you have to be discouraged. Just because you have fear doesn't mean fear has to have you.
When you have fear, fear makes you speak in a certain way. When you have fear, but when you have faith, you don't need to count. When you have faith, you don't need to go outside. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many horses. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many armies. When you have faith, you don't need to see how many swords. When you have faith, you don't need to count no shields. When you have faith, you don't need to look at the parameter and see how many against. When you have faith, you just believe and it'll happen.
You gotta get to the point where you don't need a car anymore. You don't need a house anymore. You don't need to be pushed by anybody anymore. Your dreams, your wives gonna push you. Your spouse is gonna push you. Your child is gonna push you. The need to get better is going to push you. Because you're closer than you're ever going to be, it's gonna push you. You don't need anything to push you. Your goals are going to push you. Your dreams are going to push you. The opportunity of a lifetime that happens in this particular time frame is going to push you. It's going to drive you. It's going to make you better.
You got to tell life, I don't know who you've been dealing with, but you ain't dealt with me. You got to tell bankruptcy. You got to tell divorce. You got to tell sickness. I don't know who you've been dealing with, but you come up against the wrong one this time.
If you are willing to grind, you can start from nothing. When I talk about beast mode now, I'm talking about the ant that's very small, but that can probably live 100 times his weight. I'm saying that some of you in this room, you might not be a lion yet. Some of you in this room, you might be an ant. You might have small beginnings. You might not have a lot of money. You might not have a lot of resources. You might be the ant, and the ant has very little, but he's determined. He's strong. He has a dream and a goal, and he'll do whatever it takes. Many of you right now, life's got you up against the rope, and you got to do me a favor. Like, you can't give up. You can't give in. Listen to me. If it was easy, everybody would do it. And if life's got you backed up, I need you to start fighting back.
When the going get tough, tough get going. When you go through the valley, when you have been knocked down, when you know what it is to be destroyed, when you know what it is to be wiped out by life, no one can take that from you. If you come from a family right now that's broke, use that to your advantage. I use that to my advantage that I was a high school dropout, that I was homeless, that I ate out of trash can. I love dealing with a dude who think because he come from money, he better than me. Let's go. You got money, but do you got that dog? Yeah, you got money, you got privilege, but do you got that dog? There's certain things when you privilege that mama can buy you, but you can't buy grit, and you can't buy grind, and you can't buy resilience, and you can't buy heart, and you can't buy that dog. I got this dog for being homeless. I'm getting paid now because the homelessness didn't break me. Come on, you need to remember, this is not the first time you cried. This is not the first time you were short of breath. This is not the first time you didn't see a way clear. This is not the first time you were hurt. This is not the first time your heart was broken. This is not the first time you didn't have enough money. This is not the first diagnosis that came up from behind.
Say, I'm gonna live to tell the story. This too shall pass. I will remain. I'm not gonna quit. Every one of my burdens, there's a blessing on the inside of it. If you don't quit, you will win, baby. Just keep coming back. If you got nothing left to give, just show back up. Half of life, man, is just showing up.
I couldn't give up. Homeless, I still couldn't give up. I'm one crash shot, the PhD. I can't give up. Why? Because the value, what it's worth, what I put in too much. I've given too much. I sweat too much. I've given up sleep. I've given up friendship. I've given up so much stuff that I had to get back later. Why? Because the value, I put too much in it. What's it worth to you? What does it cost? What price have you paid for it? What has it cost you? And if it costs you something, then you better not quit until you get a harvest. You better not quit till it's fully developed. You better not quit in the midst of the process. I need you to speak victory. I don't care what's going on around you. I need you to speak victory. I need you to talk victory. I don't care what your circumstances are. I don't need you to speak your reality. If you broke, you ain't got to tell the whole world you broke. I need you to speak victory. I need you to say I'm going to graduate when you can't even see it. I need you to say my book will be finished. I'm an author long before it's finished. You have to believe it when you cannot see it. You have to speak it and say it's so that can become a reality. Because if you can speak it, if you can say it, you're going to eventually get to it.
And that was a little bit of motivation. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now a little meditation. And that was a little bit of meditation. Back in a minute. Thank you. So, along the lines of this, the idea of people or policy, and that, again, Trump, that's where TDS or Trump derangement syndrome comes from, is they know that if they can get rid of Trump, they get rid of his policies, i.e. MAGA. So, we can do the same thing. Republicans can do the same thing. Conservatives can do the same thing. One of the weakest members of the Democrat caucus is in the Senate, and that's Chuck Schumer. He looks as though he's going to be replaced. It wouldn't surprise me if he went ahead and stepped down as minority leader. He may not give up his seat in the Senate because he's not done with the stock exchange yet. But the point is that right now we can do a lot of psychological damage by predicting his downfall, by going after Schumer and making Schumer the focus of our attention, and developing, if you will, Schumer derangement syndrome, and hammering him, and then when he does step aside, we can then go ahead and claim credit. So the point is, if you're going to do the people or policy game, two can play that game. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of Stewart with some retired four-star general.
Well, General Jack Keane joins me now. General, what is your reading of this debate over killing survivors?
Yeah, well, there's a lot of misunderstanding here, and I think the Pentagon should conduct their own independent investigation of what took place there, because they're really good at getting to the bottom of this, and if there was something wrong here, they do hold people accountable. I'm a little concerned about the congressional investigation because of the politics involved in it, but just to set some facts in front of the American people so they understand this better, is that in the 20 years of the 9/11 wars, we've had Republican and Democratic presidents authorize our military, when they're conducting airstrikes through drones or other means against isolated targets. In other words, there's no American ground troops in the area. And the mission is to kill the terrorists because of who they are and what they represent. It's irrelevant whether they're at a meeting and they're not armed or not. Maybe they are armed, but the mission is to kill the terrorists because of who they are. And if they don't kill them all with the first strike, those commanders have always been authorized to conduct reattacks. This has been done probably at least at a minimum 25% of the time. And that is what we're talking about here. But let's get the facts. The facts are, we don't know how close another ship may have been to go police up those survivors.
Okay, so the real issue here that they're not touching on is this is a battle of free will. That's where there's the differences between Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and liberals, is the issue of free will. Liberals like to pretend that nobody has free will. We're all forced to do what we do by powers beyond our control. There are a lot of Americans that like that idea because they think that it indemnifies them against their decisions. So that if you make a decision and it goes wrong or bad, then you can shrug your shoulders and say, well, don't look at me. Another way to put it is, don't blame him, don't blame me, blame the guy behind the tree. But the normal people in our society know that we do have free will and that some people choose to do evil things. And because they choose to do evil things, they deserve to be severely punished for their villainy. And these drug mules, drug producers, drug runners are getting severely punished for their villainy. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now from an account on Instagram called American Lumberjack.
If you want a good laugh today, check this out.
Somalis are not terrorizing this nation. We are helping it thrive. Somalis have always seen themselves as the fabric of this nation. So not only are we not going anywhere, we are not going to allow anybody to make us feel less Minnesotan or less American.
First and foremost, Little Miss Brusband, I don't feel American. I am American, so no one can make me feel less than or less like something that I already am because I was born there. And the real problem stems from the fact that you believe that you are the fabric of this nation. By the way, that metaphor refers to people that share fundamental structures, values, beliefs, you know, culture and all this stuff. Then you come from Somalia, where the country's major fabric is Islam, what holds that nation together. And in Islam, you either convert or die. That's their belief system, correct? Or you force them to believe what you believe. Didn't Minnesota change their flag for you? See, if you were the fabric of this nation as you're espousing, you wouldn't have come to change the area you're in. You would assimilate and join in and share your culture and share your beliefs without forcing it on anybody, because no means no. But you guys don't believe in that. If I don't believe what you believe, you say I should die. So please miss me with that.
And that was Mr. Lumberjack. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is X3 Techno 2.0.
So apparently the Somali crew called Feeding Our Future was able to steal $250 million just by threatening Minnesota officials that they were going to call them racist if they didn't keep the cash flowing. And it worked?
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what it is. America has turned into a bunch of PUSSYs. You mean to tell me you let these people extort you for $250 million in 1 year because they threatened to call you a bunch of names? Are you for real? Whatever happened to sticks and stones? May break my bones, but names, whatever. Listen, let me tell you something. You so busy trying not to be the bad guy, you don't want to be the villain so bad that the pendulum has stretched and swung too far to the other side. And that is the problem. That's the problem. You don't went from, well, you know, this is the land of the free, and then people can come and get the American dream, to the American people are paying taxes, so we have to pay for everything, including our own thoughts. And you let these people come in here and tell you what you're going to do, or they're going to tattletale on you. Man, y'all tripping. You better get your head out your ass, America. I'm telling you. Listen, this is what it is. If you don't like it here, if America is racist, if America is all these different things, you are more than welcome to go back to either where you came from, or you can go back, or you can go to another country that you think is going to treat you better. It's not a big deal. Get the fuck out. You don't have to stay here, huh? What the hell is we doing over here? So you mean to tell me we got veterans on the street living homeless? What is beeping on this thing here? We got veterans on the street living homeless, but you're going to give $250 million to a bunch of people that's not supposed to be here? Man, we got to get this shit straightened out, and we got to do it right away. I'm sick of this shit.
And that was X3 Techno 2.0. Back in a minute. Thank you. Now a little bit of John Kobylt.
In the cable news channel, and he had some of this story coming out of Minnesota. What a huge embarrassment to that boob governor, Tim Walz. What a loser this guy is. It turns out he's been governor now for 2 full terms, and the Somali immigrants in Minnesota looted $1 billion in tax money from Walz since COVID. Because they have a very generous welfare system there. The New York Times calls it a Scandinavian-style welfare system. So they shovel the money out to lazy people who refuse to work. And that's just a matter of normal business for people in Minnesota. But then the Somalis came. Now, they have 80,000 people from Somalia in Minnesota, and they are now a big voting bloc. You know, they got citizenship, and they all vote Democratic. So now the likes of Tim Walz has to appeal to them. And if there are enough Somalians involved in an extensive fraud ring, he's not going to prosecute them. And again, I'm going to read you the words of a Somalia American named Kesa Magan, who is a fraud investigator for the Minnesota Attorney General's office. He said elected officials in the state, especially the Democrats, were reluctant to go after the Somalians who were stealing the money. There's a perception that forcefully tackling the issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc. Out of 86 people so far that's been indicted, 79 are Somalian. 59 have been convicted. And listen to Tim Walz. What was he on Meet the Press yesterday? Dancing around this.
Speaking of...
Okay, so the thing he goes on with Governor Walz. Who cares? The issue here again is to Democrats. You need to be able to tell the Democrats, hey, look, you have certain expectations. You want certain things done, and those things cost money. And when they're wasting millions and billions of dollars, giving them to fraudsters, that's money that could go for single-payer health care, money that could be used to mitigate climate change, money that could be used to house the homeless. Lots of good causes could have been funded with that money. Back in a minute. Thank you. And now, Apollo.
2. Once in orbit, the crew was preoccupied, first of all, with getting the guidance platform realigned. The platform was at the heart of the Inertial Measuring Unit, IMU, a metal sphere about the size of a beach ball located beneath the center couch of the command module. Within the IMU's casing were 3 nested spheres called gimbals. The gimbals, each controlled by a gyroscope, functioned like a gimbal in a boat that lets a table surface remain unaffected when the boat heels. At the center of the 3 gimbals was the platform, the table surface, which had been aligned before launch. From the moment of launch, each movement in the spacecraft was measured by accelerometers and registered in the guidance system, which added that movement onto the previous movements it had recorded. In other words, the guidance system always knew where it was relative to some specific 0 point. When the main power buses went out during launch, the gimbals lost their balance, as it were, and the result was that the platform physically tumbled. The crew of Apollo 12 had to realign the platform through star sightings taken on board Yankee Clipper, a task that was never easy but was particularly difficult when the spacecraft was not, as for sightings during a nominal mission, in deep space with lots of time. The crew, already busy checking out the spacecraft, had somehow to work in the star sightings during the half of each orbit when they were in the Earth's shadow. With much effort and at nearly the last opportunity, Command Module pilot Dick Gordon succeeded, and the onboard guidance system could take over from the instrumentation unit in the S-4B stage that had been doing all the work up until then. This left the Apollo's managers still confronting the larger question. Should 12 proceed to the moon? As ECOM, the man responsible for the environmental and electrical systems, Aaron was once again the man on the spot. This time it wasn't just Jerry Griffin coming to him, but Chris Kraft descending from the 4th row. Now, young man, Aaron remembered Kraft saying to him, you've got an hour and a half to figure out whether that spacecraft's ready to go to the moon or not. They could take no longer than that because they couldn't let the spacecraft continue in Earth orbit longer than 3 revolutions. On each revolution, the Earth was changing position under them. After 3 orbits, the ground stations would be unable to track the burn. Emergency recovery vessels would be in the wrong parts of the world's oceans, and the spacecraft itself would be out of position for the lunar trajectory needed to conduct the mission. Kraft really put it on me, Aaron said. By this time, they were certain that the cause of Apollo 12's problems had been lightning. But how does one determine in an hour and a half that a spacecraft struck by lightning is sound enough to go to the moon? It was not the kind of exercise for which the flight control team had ever trained. Griffin and Aaron didn't have time to invent a procedure, so they decided to section out the piece of the flight maneuver checklist that the crew would ordinarily have used before burning into lunar orbit. Their logic was that no maneuver in the flight was more critical than the LOI burn. If the spacecraft was in good enough shape to pass the LOI checklist, it was good enough to proceed out of Earth orbit. They worked through the checklist with Conrad's crew, testing the propulsion systems, gimbal systems, gyros, computers, counting down to the last few seconds before actually firing the SPS. Everything worked. During that same hour and a half, the Moker support network in Span, the Murr, and at the North American Rockwell plant in Downey worked frenziedly to figure out whether the lightning had compromised any of the spacecraft systems. Bethpage, Long Island, where Grumman was located, couldn't do much except speculate. The LEM was still housed in the slaw, inaccessible. Watching the data in the Murr, Arabian reached the conclusion that the spacecraft looked fine except for the destroyed instrumentation, which had no bearing on the mission, and there was no reason not to continue. For Arabian, it was just one more instance where you examine the physics of the situation. You do whatever the data say. All the systems seemed all right, so go ahead. The Murr passed its recommendation along. To Bill Tyndall, watching the data, it looked as if they had a normal spacecraft once they had reset the platform. But it was later pointed out to him, a large and undesigned for electrical charge had run through every circuit in Yankee Clipper. Who cares, Tyndall replied with a big laugh. Griffin recalled that Kraft had tried to take some of the pressure off. Don't forget that we don't have to go to the moon today, he had said to Griffin. But the determinations that flowed to the flight director's console all said the same thing. We kept clicking off that checklist, Griffin recalled, and when we got to the end, we all kind of said, well, there's this unknown about a few things. We don't know where all that stray electricity may have run around in the cabin, but everything we can check looks okay. Is there any reason not to go? And we looked at each other and said, hell no, let's go. Griffin turned around to management row and told Kraft that's what they were going to do. It was a unique test for senior management who were close enough to the day-to-day operations to have a reasonable technical grasp of the situation. Specifically, the directors of flight operations, Kraft, flight crew operations, Slayton, ASPO, McDivitt, and the Apollo program itself, Patron. They had never overridden a flight director's decision during a mission, but never before had a strategic choice of this nature presented itself. There was an argument for terminating the mission no matter what the data said. The unknown in Griffin's mind was in theirs as well. The spacecraft hadn't been designed for the treatment it had gotten during launch. Why take a chance? Kraft was in Houston. Slayton, McDivitt, and Patron were at the Cape. They had been conferring over the phone lines. Apparently, there was no argument and no agonizing. There was one awful possibility that they couldn't check out with telemetry. Conceivably, the electricity had blown the pyrotechnics that operated the entry parachute system. But that was extremely unlikely and, thinking back on it, Patron shrugged fatalistically. If that had happened, what difference would it have made to their decision about going to the moon? The crew wouldn't have come back alive no matter what they did. We had a very short time to discuss it, Patron recalled, but all of our minds were saying the same thing. You're up. The big part of the mission had been accomplished and everything was working. You've got the table lined up, everything's pumping, everything looks good on board. Houston on the ground says everything looks good here. So we all said, hey, obviously. No big discussion. Wasn't needed. Once you got all those other parameters falling in line, let's go. So when Griffin told Kraft that he was going to go for TLI, Kraft just nodded. But suppose the situation had been posed as a scenario on the ground when writing mission rules. Under those circumstances, would Tyndall's mission techniques meetings have come up with a rule saying that if the spacecraft is hit by lightning and the electrical system goes down and the platform tumbles, our standard operating procedure will be to conduct an hour-and-a-half check and, if nothing seems wrong, continue? Well, said an Apollo veteran, now a senior NASA manager, maybe not. Or suppose 20 years later, after the Challenger accident, that a comparable situation were to occur with the shuttle. Would NASA go ahead with the equivalent of a translunar injection? He laughed aloud at that one. Not a chance. But this is now, he said. That was then.
And that was Chapter 26, Section 2 of Apollo. And next week will be Section 3. Back in a minute. Thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States today, bidding adios to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers out there, and reminding you that greed is not conservative.